Are you in the game? B?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't forget to take your daily.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, the big splash versus the ultra rares. Here we go. The action begins now.
I say one of the most aggravating things about this game is when I keep getting disconnected from you.
Good visibility in the arena.
I've heard of duck, duck, goose, but never duck goes boom.
The other guy
Our
on our
contestants
team
have a
can hear
rather
us.
unique visitor in the arena.
What? Oh, he can?
Vault 1 is being
He heard
jimmied by
the
the ultra
yeah.
rares.
Oh. I apologize. I didn't know you could have two parties going at once.
Coup grenade out!
Enemy spotted. Up there.
Coup grenade sent!
I'm reloading.
Reinforcing the area! Throwing coup grenade! Talk about a close call. Steps up to keep their cash safe.
Revive me, please.
Bam! Got him.
That's it. Our first team wipe, and it's a brutal one.
That one definitely went against the big splash. Honey, I'm home!
Man, I ain't done with this shit.
The ultra rares are playing for keeps. They've snagged the match's first cash out.
A
Okay.
move like that takes next level coordination.
I don't know what you mean by clear gas. I was dead, I couldn't clear it.
The big splash are looking for admission to Vault 2. Throwing coup grenade! Coup grenade set! Apologies, but it looks like our destruction became their hammerhead monster. Expect some temporary disruption in the arena. Barricades up!
I'm back.
Head to cash out C.
Cash out underway thanks to the big splash. 4 straight eliminations. Pure dominance on display.
They're tracking us. Drop the mine. Contestants is really showing the skill out there. That's a lot of eliminations without being taken down.
That's the kind of strength that breaks morale. Doing things up. Let's see how the next half will play out.
These
Here's some
contestants
cover.
are putting everything on the line.
The ultra rares just have no quit in them.
Barricade,
Steal
check.
with mere seconds left.
Well, this was a fast
Fortune
game.
favors the bold, Scotty.
Yep.
I just love the giant monster over there throwing rocks at us.
Over there.
That's just hilarious. I got 10 kills.
Hey,
Oh yeah.
Perfectly paced performance
Good
secures
job.
the win for the ultra rares. Priceless.
I wrecked
Thanks
them.
again to our sponsors and to our viewers at home.
Hero dead. That was a good game. That was a really good game. Alright, we should just quit while I'm ahead. The guy was pretty good on assists.
Dude's gonna play another match with us.
Alright. He liked my skills?
I don't know, we did okay though, so. Look, y'all did. I didn't really do anything but put up barricades.
I approve of him being on my team. Want me to invite him to the party? I don't know if I can invite him. It don't matter.
He is in the party.
Game party.
Here we go. The Jet Setters versus the Tough Shells. Unleash our contestants.
Let's dive in, guys.
Bright weather and normal visibility mean one thing. No excuses for our contestants this round.
Victory isn't just about strategy, it's about altitude. Isolt, Dissun, and Bio raise the bar with suspended cash-out stations in today's arena. The
Going
Jet
up there.
Setters are probing Vault 1.
Swordfish. Thank you.
What a first elimination.
This is what it's all about, partner.
Couldn't agree more, Snotty.
Reloading. Gas mine armed.
Advance on cash out B.
Toxic trap set.
Run, Forrest, run. Oh, sorry, dude.
The Tough Shells start the first cash out of this round.
Get in here, hurry.
Here's some protection.
The wall behind you.
Screwing things up.
One down.
Throwing goo grenade.
Poor dude.
Rocket time.
That should not have
Reload. Enemy down there.
Oh! He had good aim.
Revive me. Now would be a good time. Taking damage.
Oh.
A crushing first team wipe just unfolded.
They got caught off guard there.
He's
The
too
Tough
stupid to
Shells
go
weren't
around
ready
the
for
wall.
that turn.
That was
Yeah.
The Jet Setters just fired in a cash out.
That was
I don't
unexpected.
think we'll make it to that one.
no, we ain't got enough. Fuck it.
Tossing some fire.
After that steal, I bet they're walking off with a little swagger like, how do you like them virtual apples? I'm reloading. Getting a mine.
Unlocking Vault 2, the jet setters are trying to book a ticket to fame.
Blue grenade out.
I gotcha.
Got
I sure hope the contestants have read that ancient
It spawned right by the shark.
contracts. It's in the ultra fine print. Anyway, take cover from incoming boulders. Cash out in progress thanks to the tough shells.
Placing a cover. Blue grenade set. Throwing some goo.
Enemy spotted! Up there!
Mm.
I'm going up there!
the one time you run out of fuel with a flamethrower.
Taking damage. Blasting red. Reloading.
Negative.
You have got to be kidding me. A late steal from the jet setter.
I wonder what else they can get going over there.
Intervention there from the contestants blocking that cash out steal. Wow, that was rock solid. The tough shells took that cash out back.
Wow.
We hit the halfway mark and the action is ramping up.
The next bit is going to be packed with suspense.
Danger down there! Enemy spotted! Down there!
Jet setters.
Going over there! Spotted an enemy!
Sniper.
The tough shells are busy busting into Vault 3.
And that shark is on
Here's
me.
a barricade.
Yeah, causing me to lag a little. A lot.
Got one. Hey,
Head to cash out A.
shit, he dropped me.
Yeah, holy snaps, they're destroying everything.
I think it's the shark.
Taking damage.
We found another one.
Cash out. Good steal.
The fire ain't even on me! Dang it!
Shot steal denied. A close play out there in the arena.
Behind you!
Good gravy.
Good.
It's a late steal from the Tough Shells.
Will they make this a 3-1?
I saw the team and thought team won.
Two grenade out. Throw in some goo.
Damn it! He's got it.
Fuck off, that's mine.
Guardian turret active.
We all got 7 kills.
The Tough Shells displayed uncrackable strategy
Very
and
good.
armored speed with this win. On behalf of all of us here at the finals, thanks for watching. Here we go. The Steamrollers up against the High Notes. Hold on tight, gang. It's going to be a wild ride. With the arena cloaked in a
They play
sandstorm,
Vegas in a bit.
contestants will need to dig deep for victory.
Yeah. Wonder if they still play that Greta Van Fleet song.
Looks pretty.
The Steamrollers are starting a revolution.
Yes.
They're opening Vault 1.
Gonna use
Yeah.
that zip line.
Smash
RPG on
through,
route.
that's a new one.
Oh, shit.
First on the board. First in
That
control.
light fucked me up, man.
No turning back now, folks. First elimination is live and the match is heating up.
It's go time.
Absolutely, Scotty. Absolutely.
Just got wrecked. Dang.
The first team wipe has landed. Let's see how that affects
Yeah, I'm gonna
things
go
in this
live with the
round.
sword.
That's a big setback for the
Okay.
High Notes. Time to reset and figure this out. hoping to pressure the competition. The steamrollers initiating our first cash out.
Screwing things up.
Hitting a note of success, the high notes just stole the cash out.
Time to disappear.
Watch out! Down there! Watch out! Over here!
Hello?
The steamrollers have respawned.
They have a bone to pick. The high notes better be ready for the encore.
Get pumped!
Vanish bomb out.
Enemy spotted! Down there!
Throwing some goo.
Reloading!
Burn.
Got it contested!
Vanish bomb out.
Enemy down!
Killing him before I can get up to him.
Setting them up!
Throwing two grenades.
Oh! I'm so behind the wall. Broke the wall.
Can I get a revive?
Awesome.
Legend! I'm back!
Vanish bomb out. Screwing things up.
A long-awaited return to the arena for the steamrollers.
Time for a little revenge, baby. The high notes might feel the heat.
Alright, we got that.
Time to disappear.
What a way to open the match. The high notes land the first cash
Target
out.
vault 2!
Now that's the payoff you look for with a steal.
Poor dude stuck fighting.
Looks like it won't let me open it, but I got there before it actually did.
Where are we going, D?
Move to cash out B!
B? Sorry, I thought that was a D.
Confirmed.
Mind the mine!
The angry rock-throwing shark monster thing is
Aw.
out of its cage again. Viewers, remember,
I dropped.
if you can see the whites of its eyes, you're way too close. A pitch-perfect move by the Highlands.
Two grenades sent.
Oh shit, they dropped me. I'm not sure how to do that.
Arming a mine. Moving. Follow me.
He's down here. Oh, I wasn't meaning to like tell y'all to go. That's just something. Oh, I'm down.
Vanish bomb out. Got it
Okay.
contested.
He fell. Yeah, he fell.
Enemy over there!
Throwing some goo.
Gotta reload! This might hurt!
Shit, they got me. Dang. Dang.
The high notes can't keep the rhythm. They've been wiped out again. The steamrollers steal a cash out. Let the good times roll.
Remember, that's illegal in many jurisdictions, but not here.
The high notes are re-engaging.
I'm going for that zip line.
The second half starts now, and it's anyone's game.
Time to disappear. Tossing a flashbang.
Enemy over there!
got me again, like, you've been annihilating me.
You know, update right when I got up.
After that earlier altercation,
Leave
the
that
high
floor
notes
open.
should probably stay on high alert.
Open the floor back up.
The high notes have kicked off the cash out.
Shit, I got used to having goo grenades there. Sorry about that. I got a grenade.
Arming a mine. Using a flashlight.
Fantastic steal by the steamrollers.
Aggressive and impressive.
That heavy is me.
The high notes have recovered and respawned.
I got their heavy, but the grenade got me.
Reloading. Got him.
Ah!
The steamrollers paved their way
So
to victory
close.
and left a lasting impression. Thanks again to our sponsors and to our viewers at home.
Damn, that was close.
That was.
Zero power ship.
The Overdogs versus the Kingfish. It's push or push back, folks.
Welcome to Power Shift, where
Fictional
strategy
match.
meets stamina in a battle for platform dominance and cash.
Exactly, June.
They haven't
A
really
single
changed
contestant
much
on the
this map.
platform in progress will be sluggish.
Some of the other maps.
Too
I've
many, and
never
they
seen.
might be sitting down for a
RPG away.
attack.
Enemy spotted down there.
This might get crazier than I expected.
A little crazy is good. Let's see how this unfolds. Frag out! Showing us why they're not the underdogs. The overdogs are still in control.
Drop the mine! Gas mine drop! Getting a mine! Skyguard active! Turret flank!
Oh, shit.
Hmm.
Reloading! That creep just turned the tide of the match!
The overdogs just snatched the steering wheel. They're in control. Neither are the Kingfish.
Enemy up there! I'm reloading! Got it!
Hey, I'm coming.
Danger at the platform!
Under the overdogs' command, the platform has set sail. That platform's in motion. The Kingfish are on the advance.
A contestant is moving to elimination zone.
Dude almost caught on fire trying to
I
revive
was
him.
on fire.
Bandit bomb out!
That was getting wrecked.
Reloading! Back in action! Don't go online! Enemy gas out! Haven't pushed an inch off that platform!
The Kingfish have seized control and are steaming back to base.
Probably already gone! Reloading! Reviving!
Revive.
Says being revived.
Now the Kingfish are navigating.
Mine disappears!
Halfway through, and this match is delivering on every front.
It's the finals, folks. This is one for the history books.
Winning now!
Wait for me, teammates. I'm coming for you.
And we got our first team wipe of the match.
That shot landed hard on the opening.
Panic bomb out.
Well, we took over that.
Panic bomb out. Reloading. Gas grenade out. Panic bomb. Panic bomb out.
Look at
An
my
incredible match
tools.
concludes with the Kingfish as the victors. And with that, we'll see you next time at the
Zero.
finals.
Zero. Somebody got 17. Wow.
Team deathmatch.
Okay.
All right, the Kingfish up against the Retros. Weapons hot and chaos guaranteed. It's TDM time.
Strap in, everyone. It's time for team deathmatch.
Two teams enter, but only one emerges from the chaos.
Time to disappear.
Almost got a third one.
You.
God.
The Kingfish cruising.
Missile burn.
Taking damage. That thing just broke the pace wide open.
Creating a passage.
Panic bomb out. Flashy.
What was wrong?
Special delivery. The Kingfish dominating. Flashbang. Throwing the frag. Mid-game. The Kingfish are clearly in front. Panic bomb out. Winding things up.
Thermal active. Taking
Kingfish crushing opponents. All in one go, and still not even breathing hard. Brightening things up.
Yeah, get him.
Who can handle the pressure?
This is the final sprint.
Oh. 30 seconds, 10
Well-earned
seconds.
victory in round one for the Kingfish. They controlled the flow and made their mark.
I got 2 kills.
After swimming circles around their opponents, the Kingfish are close to victory.
Enemy spotted. Taking the cover.
Come on, guys.
Dang.
A hard-fought match reaches its boiling point. It's tiebreaker time. Taking damage.
Drop one. Rocket delivery. Not even breathing hard. I'm reloading. That streak just broke the pace wide open. Reloading. Rocket away.
They're being tryhards.
That's the kind of streak that breaks morale. Enemy spotted. Have him lead.
Yeah, yeah. Alright, let me put my tryhard on.
Every elimination landed like a hammer to glass. They're down.
Ah.
challenges with remarkable skill.
I think 3 or 4 of them was on the same team.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And honestly, for them being on the same team,
They weren't that good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that last round I didn't do too well, but I swapped classes. Them first 2 rounds, I was wrecking them.
Yeah. I was goofing off most of that, I'm sorry. There's some more silverware in the dishwasher. Oh. Excuse me. Rent's starting to go down. Because it's whole milk. Yeah, just shake it up a little. The curdle on top is what most people use to make butter. Yeah, it tastes pretty good. I don't want it. It's butter. Dump it in the sink or give it to hot sauce. It's just the fatty part of the milk. Yeah, Brownie wants it. That's what everybody at work was telling me that they use it for. No. They just said they use it as butter. It don't matter. It's already almost 9. I'm pretty much done. Okay.
Off. Water, Powerade, or Sprite, I don't care. Well, we was listening to like. I didn't know it was gonna be that stuff. I don't think they was able to. I think the doctors were keeping them away. I was still alive, by the way. Hey,
Hi,
Chubby, you
Dr.
could've
Bernard
started the
here.
video.
This video is based on a case published in literature. I don't, and I'm not going to, rag on chiropractic. If you need chiropractic care, see a chiropractor. Don't do it yourself. Very generally, a licensed professional exists for some function. You hire that licensed professional when you need someone to perform that function for you. And in America, chiropractors are licensed by the state. If you don't need to see a chiropractor, then don't see one. I'm telling you this story to teach you medicine and anatomy. A mom did a chiropractic maneuver on her own neck. This is what happened to her brain. CN is a 34-year-old woman presenting to the emergency room, foaming at the mouth. Paramedics tell the admitting nurse that they saw her complain of headache and nausea in the ambulance before she had a seizure, and after it was over, she was completely unresponsive. CN could never remember a time in her life when she felt healthy. Growing up, her parents never taught her hygiene because they didn't really practice it themselves. CN didn't learn to use toilet paper until she was a teenager, and when she did learn about it, her usage usually wasn't complete. It'd get swampy, and she'd get deep in and scratch the whole area. And because her hygiene wasn't optimal, her hands would touch all kinds of surfaces, and it'd get very many people ill. But the person who got the most ill from this was herself. Bacteria would get from her hands into her urinary tract, and the resulting complicated urinary tract infection would just feel horrible. She'd have a fever. Her sides would hurt in a way that it would make her eyes water, and it would bring her down to the ground. CN was always able to get antibiotics for this, though, and finally, a doctor was able to correctly identify her poor habits based on her smell in the clinic. Once she was finally able to clean it up, things were looking great for her, but only for a few years. One day, CN realized that she couldn't remember the last 6 months of her life. Every morning she'd wake up and she didn't know where she was. She didn't know what day it was and she didn't know where she had to be. And her grades at school just suffered. CN lost most of her friends during this time because everyone just got frustrated at talking with her. if she even showed up in the first place. She didn't understand what anyone was saying, and it gave them the impression that she just wasn't listening. And sometimes she would forget to respond for days, so people just gave up. No one wanted to be friends with someone who does that all the time. Finally, one day, Cian had a urinary tract infection that brought her into the hospital, but something was wrong. This wasn't related to her poor habits with toilet paper and touching things. She was clean now. Rather, Cian had somehow developed type 1 diabetes. This is a time when the pancreas is damaged and no longer makes insulin, which is a hormone that's released after you eat to tell the body's cells to take in sugar from the food that you just ate. But when there isn't any insulin being made, the sugar stays in the blood, and this causes organ damage. The nerves start to shut down, the kidneys fail, the feet might need to be amputated because sores develop and they don't heal. The brain can't function in this environment, so executive function becomes impaired, explaining why she wasn't being her normal self. But her diabetes also explains this particular urinary tract infection. In extreme hyperglycemia, hyper meaning high, glyce from glucose referring to sugar, and emia meaning presence in blood, high sugar presence in blood, sugar gets into the urine. And because sugar grows bacteria, when sugar's in the urine, it predisposes one to horrible urinary tract infections, just like the one that Cian had. But her problem didn't stop here. In the hospital, Cian's infection wouldn't respond to antibiotics typically used for UTI. As the bacteria started spilling into her blood, it caused her body to send an immune response. Kind of like how when you get a cut, it becomes swollen with fluid and warm. When bacteria floats around in your blood, your entire body becomes swollen. The blood vessels dilate, dropping blood pressure so much that the organs can't get blood anymore. Without oxygen, the organs fail. And this is what was happening to Cian, and they found out why. The sugar in her urinary tract had grown a rare bacteria not often found in UTIs, and so they elected to change her antibiotic to one that can destroy this particular bacteria, and things seemed to be okay for her. But at home, discharged from the hospital, Cian seemed okay at first. She went out for a walk, and suddenly her left knee and calf started hurting so bad that she collapsed to the ground. Back at the hospital, doctors found that Cian had partially ruptured tendons in her left leg. A 20-year-old woman shouldn't have this happening, but when the medical team looked, they found that that antibiotic that was given to her for the UTI can cause tendon rupture. It took months for her to recover from this physically, but mentally, she never recovered. Cian was never sure if the pains in her left leg were real or phantom pains, but even worse, this experience gave her health anxiety attacks. As the years passed, Cian's anxiety resulted in chronically high blood pressure. When she'd see the doctor, it just seemed that her blood pressure was always higher than normal just at that visit. She tried to tell the doctor that it wasn't normally this high on any regular day. She was just afraid that the doctor was going to tell her that something new was wrong with her, that it is, no doubt, a catastrophic illness that will for sure shorten her life, and that they absolutely must start some new medicine for her because she has it. And that new medicine will do what the last medicine did, cause terrible, permanent damage to her body. But in reality, her blood pressure really was chronically high, and this would cause her to have terrible headaches. Cian had read online about how sometimes headaches are caused by misalignment of bones in the neck, and that when these bones push down on nerves going into the skull, well, this is one cause of headache. In her mind, this was very clearly the cause of all of her problems. When she watched videos online of how necks get adjusted, she got the idea of how to do it herself. She didn't need medicines. She didn't need to hire an expensive specialist. She touched her neck and knew exactly what to do as she laid her head down on a staircase and rotated her body. Immediately after cracking her neck, the headache that Cian thought she had simply went away. This was like a miracle to her. She would keep doing this day after day. Most of the time, she knew in her mind that she felt so much better. But one day, something was wrong. At the top of the stairs, Cian held her head down. She put her body in the position that she always did. She turned her head left and twisted her body. Immediately after the cracking sound, Cian didn't feel well. She felt like her eyes were wobbling in her head. In the bathroom, at the toilet, Cian immediately emptied her stomach. Her headache didn't get any better. She started pacing around because no matter what, she could feel that there was a throbbing sensation that was wrapping around her head. She could see her heart beat in her field of view. And as the minutes passed, she'd see sparkles come in and out as things started to get dark. She tried laying down, but then finally, she didn't get up anymore. When her husband finds her on the floor, Cian was shaking as she's brought to the emergency room where we are now. At examination, doctors immediately noticed that CN had an extremely high blood pressure. She was still conscious for a few minutes, but she wasn't able to speak, and then she became unconscious. Doctors and her husband had no idea what happened. They didn't know what she was doing beforehand, but clearly something had happened to her brain. One thing that can be done is to see if something happened to the blood supply going to her brain, and we can visualize this. There's two things to know. First, blood going to the brain is oxygenated. Nature tells us how important the brain is because it's one of the first places that blood goes to once it leaves the heart. If something stopped that blood flow, then CN's brain was being starved of oxygen. This will cause immediate, permanent damage. But why would that happen? And that's the second thing. Blood goes to organs via arteries. Anatomy tells us the possibilities. 1. Arteries can be blocked, usually by a blood clot. 2. They can narrow because of a plaque that can obstruct blood flow. 3. They can bulge out and pop, something called an aneurysm. Or 4. The inner lining can rip apart and blood can tear inside, separating the arterial layers and then clotting, blocking blood flow. Doctors inject a dye while running a CT scanner on CN's head to see if they can visualize where problematic blood flow might be. When they do this, they find that a very short segment of an artery in the region where CN's skull meets her spine in her neck was thickened. This could be a problem, but maybe not. But other than that, everything else was normal. In the intensive care unit, CN would respond to stimuli. They would squeeze her trapezius muscle to get a response. But as the hours pass, no amount of squeezing would yield any feedback. Shortly after her arrival, a CT scan revealed that a huge portion of the front right part of her brain was bleeding. Hey, I got a quick question. If you like this video, I wanted to let you know I publish once a month, and I try my best to make each video worth your time. I've been making these since 2017. If you do find this valuable, I'd love it if you subscribed and come back to see my next video too. The brain is covered by thin tissues that protect it. Between these layers is something called the subarachnoid space. The CT scan found that CN's brain was bleeding right into this area, but there was more. The brain has fluid-filled cavities on the inside that serve as a communication network called ventricles. There's 4 of them, and they're interconnected. There was extensive bleeding into CN's ventricles, so much so that her brain was swelling. It was distorting, and parts of it were getting pushed off to the sides while getting crushed up against her skull. If imaging showed that her brain arteries were okay, why is her brain bleeding like this? The vertebral artery originates from the subclavian artery, which comes from the aorta, which is the largest artery in the body where blood emerges from the heart. The moment that blood leaves the heart, one of the first places that it goes to is the right subclavian artery, which goes to the right vertebral artery to head directly to the brain. The problem is, the vertebral artery enters into the cervical spine and it passes through these holes called transverse foramen. As you go up towards the brain, you start to notice all these delicate structures that receive blood from this artery. And because it's built this way, if an accident happens, terrible things happen to the brain. If trauma is applied to the vertebral artery, such as a twisting motion that outside the body looks like a chiropractic maneuver on one's own neck, then the shear stress can cause a tear on the inside lining of the blood vessel. Blood rushes into this tear. At first, every time the heart beats, it packs blood in, ripping the layers of the blood vessels apart until it's so far in that the heartbeats can't rip in any further. This is called an artery dissection. And the blood that's already in pools. It starts to thicken and becomes like a gel. This narrows the lumen or inside hole of the blood vessel. And it was maybe the one thing that doctors saw in the emergency room when they tried to check the blood flow going to her brain. The problem is, by the time you get to the vertebral artery segment in the brain, the arterial walls are thin. Everything's delicate. When handled without care, it can easily rip. The end of this is massive bleeding. When bleeding happens in the ventricles, the brain can swell and crush against the skull. Other parts of the brain will twist and get shoved into the base of the skull. These are called herniations, and this was observed to be happening to CN on her CT scan. Headache and nausea are common in subarachnoid hemorrhage. The pressure on the brain starts to cause one to become sensitive to light and cause one's neck to become stiff, something that may not be out of the ordinary for CN, given the movement that she did with her body. In her case, as blood moves down towards her spinal cord, it irritates the surrounding nerves, causing neurologic issues. And as the minutes and hours pass, more and more permanent damage is being done to CN's brain. But this should be really weird. Looking at the anatomy of how the arteries are laid out in the cervical spine, the one thing that we have to ask is, how often does this happen? You might be familiar with how sensitive the neck can be. At one point, you may have stretched funny and then felt a sharp tinge in your neck, and the next thing that you know,
Anything you
something
thought
in
you
the neck
can
is
get.
stuck for the next week. And that's just muscle. There's nerves and major blood vessels here, the latter of which something funny happening can be fatal. When we look in the literature, we find that sometimes, and this is very rare, people will just move their head and it's over. Sudden headache with severe nausea, ending in massive brain bleed so bad that the blood supply is just lost. Blood floods in, never circulates again, and clots, starving the brain of oxygen. A case series published in 1981 described 8 patients. One was a 38-year-old woman who turned her head while driving, and immediately the back of her head had a sharp pain, and she suddenly couldn't see while she was on the road. In the hospital, she had trouble moving her right arm and her brainstem started shutting down. The brainstem controls breathing, and they knew hers wasn't working anymore because they saw her become unable to breathe properly. At autopsy, they found that the middle and back parts of her brain had been bleeding because of an injury to the right vertebral artery. This wasn't the only one. Another 58-year-old man turned his head while backing up his car. He proceeded to lose vision in both of his eyes for 5 seconds. He then got the worst headache of his life and started emptying his stomach from his mouth. 2 days later, he was unable to move his eyes, and imaging found that his left cerebral artery had dissected. But luckily, he was still alive and taking medication for this 11 months after this had happened. One important takeaway from this paper is that blood vessels in the neck can break at any moment, starving the brain of oxygen and causing permanent damage. But everyone watching this knows that this isn't the norm. I'm not breaking any vertebral arteries doing this right now. So what would predispose someone to have this happening to them? We have a little better of an idea now versus 1981. One reason that's important, but not everyone is going to have this, is connective tissue disorder like Marfan syndrome or an Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. These can impact the integrity of the arteries and could predispose one to problems like dissection and aneurysm, but CN didn't have either of these. The body has the amazing ability to adapt. In context of disease, we call this adaptation compensation because it's the body making changes responding to a pathological situation that could be remedied if a treatment is available. Do you remember CN's hypertension? Well, chronic hypertension causes permanent negative body changes. The heart's a muscle. When pressure is high all the time, we can guess that the heart is working harder than normal. What happens when muscles work harder than normal? They get bigger. They hypertrophy. If you're talking about biceps, triceps, quads, glutes, lats, maybe you do want hypertrophy. But when we're talking about the heart, we don't want that. Thicker walls of the heart means that it's harder to eject blood to the rest of the body, and cardiac hypertrophy is permanent. You can't just let the heart rest like you can skeletal muscle because that means your heart stops beating and you're not alive anymore. This is how the heart compensates, but it's not the only thing that becomes jacked. When pressure is chronically high, shear stress along the arterial lumen is increased, and arteries are vascular smooth muscle. If we've already established that the heart muscle hypertrophies because of chronic hypertension, then we can also say that the arterial smooth muscle will also hypertrophy with the increased load appearing in the form of greater shear stress. The resulting vascular remodeling causes the arteries to become more narrow and harder, but CN also had diabetes. Regardless, type 1 or type 2, the metabolic consequences of blood sugar disorders predisposes one to atherosclerosis. Athero from Latin based on Greek, referring to growth, or the appearance of what we now know as fat, and sclerosis, also from Greek, meaning a hardening. A hardening
So the
of the
Greek word
arteries
for fat
causes
is growth.
fat deposits.
That's
All of these
gross.
bodily changes put CN at a greater risk of dissecting her vertebral artery, especially when self-performing a very physically rough maneuver on her own neck. Typically, when light is shined into the eyes, the pupils will constrict so as to react to the amount of light. This is a reflex by the brainstem. When the pupils don't react, it means that something is wrong with the brainstem. And in CN, her pupils didn't react. Given that this was happening with a CT scan showing subarachnoid hemorrhage, brain hemorrhage, and brain herniation, all of these are very bad signs. And things didn't get better for her. This didn't have to happen. CN had a lot of past negative experience with medicine. She had a significant past medical history of recurrent UTI, type 1 diabetes, fluoroquinolone-associated tendinopathy, hypertension, anxiety, and possible autoimmune disease. If you take the chiropractic part out of this, her turn to self-performed therapy was especially high risk, particularly given all the risk factors that she did have. To say that she didn't know may not be entirely correct. We see it in movies and TV when someone snaps somebody's neck and then they collapse to the floor. It's just in this case, hers wasn't a movie. It wasn't a joke. She actually did collapse and she was never able to get back up again. At autopsy, evidence of injury on the left side of her neck were found. When they looked at her heart, they saw that the left ventricle had been starting to hypertrophy, consistent with her chronic hypertension. Diffuse cerebral edema was found with subarachnoid hemorrhage at the brainstem and the cerebellum. Blood clot was found in the right vertebral artery that was going into the right base of the skull, and this made sense because her injury was on the left side, so there was a contralateral impact given the nature of her maneuver. They found that her brain did herniate, that it did crush down into the base of her skull, and another part started folding in on the brain, causing the blood supply to those areas to choke off. All of this confirming that she did have vertebral artery dissection due to self-chiropractic cervical spine manipulation that resulted in fatal subarachnoid hemorrhage and cerebral hemorrhage. One of the most comprehensive warnings that I can give about this is that everything has a risk to benefit ratio. If you don't need to do it to your body or put it in your body, then don't. On a macro scale, there's a risk on doing studies. On the clinical side, we have good data on interventions that wouldn't happen in nature. For example, you're not going to find someone who does heart surgery on themselves. Or if you take a medicine, that chemical or the compound itself isn't something that's naturally made in the body or occurs in nature. So you wouldn't have accidentally gotten it in your body if you weren't actively trying to test it. And so we can study what happens to someone when they take it. That's fine and well, but studies aren't always clean cut like that. This is one reason why nutrition studies are so hard to do. They have infinite confounders. But other times, the published results from other studies aren't what you're supposed to actually get. My friend Kevin, also known as Bobby Broccoli, recently released a full-length documentary named 17 Pages, which is about a single paper that sparked off one of the largest scientific controversies of the 20th century. It was dubbed the Scientific Watergate, and it caught the attention of the national media and US Congress. The results of the scientific misconduct investigation still reverberate today, and if you want to check it out, it's only available on Nebula. Nebula is a streaming platform built by and for independent creators, including channels like my good friends Medlife Crisis, Patrick Kelly, and Joe Scott. You get early access, no ads, and videos that are thoughtful and well-researched. Plus, Nebula has a lot of really impressive original content that can't be found anywhere else, like 17 Pages. Come join us. Normally, this would be $6 a month, but if you sign up at nebula.tv/chubbyemu, which is the link in the description below, you'll receive a big 40% off a yearly subscription, which is $36 for the year, $3 a month. And you'll get full access to the whole platform. And with your subscription, you'll get one guest pass per month, so you can share with family and friends for 7 days, and they won't need to share any payment info to enjoy. Scan the QR code or click the link below to start watching now. All of this to say, be careful of studies that get thrown out there. There's a lot of noise out there now, and you need to do your own due diligence to protect your own mind and do what's best for yourself. Anything that has to do with your body, please see a licensed professional. Never elect to do it yourself. Thanks so much for watching. Take care of yourself and be well. EI is a 29-year-old man presenting to the emergency room unconscious. Paramedics tell the admitting nurse that they found him laid down on his bed with 2 empty medicine bottles nearby. He had taken all the pills inside by accident, forgetting each time that he had taken some before until both bottles were empty. On the labels, one said vitamin D prescription and the other said phenytoin, anti-seizure medicine. This shows some kind of behavior was happening. The medical team send him in to get treatment. There might still be time to bring him back and prevent permanent damage from happening. Vitamin D excess can be dangerous, but phenytoin excess can cause one to stop breathing. However, this excess is not too difficult to treat. Why was he on seizure medicine? The vitamin D makes sense because seizure medicine can inactivate it in the body, causing deficiency and weak and brittle bones. In the recovery room, EI was conscious again, but he's confused. He doesn't know why he's in the hospital. The medical team ask him why he was taking this medicine, but when he opens his mouth, it reveals he's not really all there. Vitamin D excess can cause confusion by way of causing excess calcium in the blood, but definitely something else was going on. They may not be able to get reliable information from him, but his medical record gives them some clues. 13 years ago, when he was 16, he came to the hospital with a brain tumor. Back then, doctors had noted that EI had suffered from seizures during the first 2 years of his life, and they described them as spasms, where it seemed like he would lose total control of his body, only for him to snap back into consciousness a few seconds later before totally losing control of his body again. A little different from the tonic-clonic grand mal type of seizure, where one will lose consciousness while shaking, but still a seizure nonetheless. EI's dad had had the same intellectual disability, seizures, and masses growing on his skin. Older notes had mentioned that EI had undergone treatment to remove water from his brain when he was a kid, but not many more details were given. And even worse, it really just seemed that he was getting his treatment for his symptoms and sent home repeatedly. Nothing was really solved, and it culminated into a brain tumor at 16 years old. A few weeks before he came in for the tumor, EI complained of random headaches. The pain was diffuse, so it was all over his head, bilateral on both sides, and it would pound so hard that it felt like his eyes were getting pushed out of his skull. His vision would become blurry every time this happened. Back then, they didn't know about the tumor, but imaging revealed that something was growing inside his brain, pushing on the optic nerve, disrupting his visual signal from his eyes, and causing his headache. But how did that mass get there? Surgeons cracked open the 16-year-old EI's skull, and on the right side of his brain, they found the tumor and scooped it out piece by piece. When they looked at it under a microscope, it didn't show characteristics of being malignant. It wasn't something that was going to spread everywhere in the body. It was just something like an overgrowth that was squeezing his brain against his skull, and good thing that it's gone now. But something doctors had noticed before the operation was that EI had strange-shaped bumps growing on his skin, especially by his nails. These were similar to the ones that his dad had. At the time, it wasn't clear that these were related to the fact that he had a brain tumor at 16 years old, but shortly after the surgery, EI's vision returned to normal, and he seemed to recover. Everything was great, but over time, it became clear that something was still wrong. 4 years after brain surgery, when EI was 20, a psychiatrist noted that he couldn't read or understand a newspaper. He had dropped out of high school because he just didn't understand anything that he was learning. At first, it looked like EI may have had depression. Medicines were given, but certain ones would cause him to have a headache on one side of his head. Other medicines would cause his right hand to become clumsy, and he couldn't hold on to anything. They did work a little bit, but it seemed like he had a different neuropsychiatric problem instead. And as the years passed, EI would have periods in time where he'd have horrible headaches and episodes of blanking out. He couldn't remember the last few hours that had passed when these would happen. So he was started on phenytoin for these seizures, answering the question of why he was taking seizure medicine in the first place. Back at this hospital now, a conscious EI showed the medical team that he had a pain in his side. A blood test revealed that some of his organs were shutting down. Sound waves were sent into his abdomen, and they revealed that something was there that wasn't supposed to be. When he was sent in for an MRI, they got a better idea of what that was. Both of EI's kidneys were enlarged, and both had cysts growing inside. These are kind of like blisters on his kidneys, but there were at least 50 to 100 of them scattered throughout. His left kidney had what looked like an extraordinarily large, complex cyst, and they looked closer. Sometimes cysts will pop, they'll bleed, and then this will make them restructure, scar tissue and blood clots. The problem is, when doctors looked again at the image, it didn't look like some of the cysts had been bleeding, rather it looked like blood vessels had been growing inside of them, while other parts of them became thicker. Blisters don't typically have blood vessels, but tumors do. And there wasn't just one that had blood vessels, there were multiple. So while he has these cysts all over his kidneys, at least a few of them have started to become something else. But this wasn't his only problem. EI had complained of headaches when he was resuscitated in the hospital. They did a scan of his head, and they found multiple growths were in his brain again. These weren't there 9 years ago, or 4 years after his brain surgery, so during this time, things were still growing in his brain, his skin, and his kidneys. And given what was growing on his left kidney had started spawning its own blood supply, it means something horrible has been and is still happening. But why? In one extreme, you could suppose that all three of these inappropriate growths are happening independently. Maybe because he had seizures when he was a kid, that his brain was just predisposed to growing masses. And these brain masses look different than what was growing on his skin, and they're definitely not like the blisters on his kidneys. So he might just have the unfortunate situation of having multiple diseases of multiple organs all at the same time, which is really unlikely because they're all the same central problem. Masses are growing on all of these organs. Nothing is degenerating, nothing is breaking off and floating around in his blood. Even if the masses on different organs look different, the same thing is happening to many organs. So we can reason here that it's unlikely that all of these are all independent problems, meaning that we can go to the next case that says that all of these are being caused by the same thing. But what thing exactly? Well, what about toxins? Those can cause inappropriate growths. Some toxins, like heavy metals, cause neurodegeneration, so not the creation of masses. And typically, when toxin exposure stops, then the problems start to go away. But EI had been growing more masses in his body since the time of his brain surgery 13 years ago. EI's mom didn't have any problems, but his dad did. And his dad's problems were similar to EI's, just not as severe. So if two family members have a similar problem, but a third doesn't, and they all lived in the same house, then if it was really toxin exposure, all three of them should have some degree of problems, but it was just two. His mom was fine. And if family may have passed down the same problems, then maybe what EI is experiencing is a genetic disorder. And because our genes tell our bodies what to make, if EI has a genetic disorder, then it's likely telling his body to inappropriately grow things on his organs, explaining what's happening to him. But what kind of genetic disorder is this? The medical team sent EI in for a nephrectomy, a cutting out of the kidney as they removed the one on the left. When they looked at EI's kidney, they noticed that some of the masses weren't cysts, but they were angiomyolipomas. Angio referring to blood vessels, myo meaning muscle, lipo referring to fat, and oma meaning an abnormal growth. An abnormal growth of muscle and fat that has its own blood supply. This explains the blood vessels on some of the cysts, but when they look at the largest mass, they find that it was a different, third type of mass. This one was cancer. All of this gives some clues on EI's genetic disorder. Polycystic kidney disease, poly meaning many, is a genetic disease where cysts grow all over both kidneys. EI has this, but knowing more about it gives us some clues. Humans normally have 23 pairs of chromosomes, and this is where all of our genes are. Genes dictate how all the proteins in our body are made, and this is what makes up our physical form. In 1985, the human genome hadn't been sequenced yet, but certain genes were known to be on certain chromosomes, one of them being one part of hemoglobin, the protein in blood cells that carries oxygen. By studying 4 different families where members had polycystic kidney disease, and by studying a genetic marker rooted to alpha globin, and tracking the inheritance patterns in the 4 families, they were able to discern that the gene responsible for polycystic kidney disease was located on chromosome 16. This is important to know because it gives us some more insight on what's happening. But EI's kidney doesn't just have cysts, and the masses on his skin and his brain are different still. This would mean that EI might have more than one genetic disorder. One of the doctors taking care of EI had an idea of what was happening. In 1880, Dr. Desiree Bournville in France saw a 3-year-old girl who was having nonstop seizures who also had acne of her face and a confluent vesicular-papular eruption over the nose, cheeks, and forehead. This girl didn't make it. At autopsy, Dr. Bournville noted that she had masses all over her brain that were rounded islets forming protuberances of variable size in many of the convolutions, a sort of hypertrophic sclerosis, while her kidneys had whitish hard masses. And in 1885, another set of doctors documented that this happened in a mother-daughter pair, recognizing that this tuberous sclerosis complex, TSC, appeared to be genetic. So, it's a genetic disease that somehow causes inappropriate growths on the skin, in the brain, and in the kidneys, causing tumors, seizures, and intellectual impairment. This is almost exactly what's happening to EI, but how does this link to polycystic kidney disease? In 1987, 107 years after Dr. Bournville described tuberous sclerosis complex, 19 families who had TSC were studied. Scientists had noticed that family members would inherit certain ABO blood types and TSC. ABO blood types are defined by the presence of A and B antigens, which are proteins, so they're made by the genes, and those are on red blood cells. Remember, back then, we hadn't sequenced the human genome, but we knew that the genes for blood type antigens were on chromosome 9. Scientists had noted that there was an inheritance pattern associated with TSC and ABO blood typing, meaning that tuberous sclerosis complex had to do with a gene on chromosome 9, close by where the ABO blood type antigens were. But there was a problem. Some families who also had TSC did not have an inheritance pattern linked to blood type, And this confused scientists because sometimes studies could confirm the gene on chromosome 9, and other times studies would suggest the problem gene was coming from other chromosomes. It wasn't likely that the gene being on chromosome 9 was wrong. Rather, this meant that TSC could be caused maybe with a problem by a second gene. Sometimes patients with tuberous sclerosis complex also have polycystic kidney disease. If the polycystic kidney disease gene is on chromosome 16, then is tuberous sclerosis complex also on chromosome 16? 85 people from 5 different multi-generational families who had TSC known to not be associated with blood type and chromosome 9 were studied. Based on a repeating DNA sequence known to be associated with the gene for polycystic kidney disease, they found that not only is there a second TSC gene on chromosome 16, but that it's right next to the gene for polycystic kidney disease. This chromosome 16 TSC gene was named TSC2, with the one on chromosome 9 being named TSC1. So if one has an alteration in the genes in this particular part of chromosome 16, they will likely have cysts and angiomyolipomas growing together in the kidneys. And this explains EI's problem. Genetic mutations in one particular part of chromosome 16 is causing overgrowths everywhere in the body, especially his kidneys. They were passed down from his dad, who had almost all of the same problems. But now the question is, how would we treat this? You can't just inject chromosome 16 into trillions of cells into his body. And just knowing where his mutations are coming from isn't enough. The question to ask now is, what exactly are these mutations doing? Cell size is tightly controlled. If they're smaller than normal, then maybe some kind of signal is causing that. And if they're bigger than normal, a different signal might be telling them to acquire more nutrients to get bigger. Insulin is a hormone that tells cells to absorb more sugar to start to grow. When TSC1 or TSC2 genes were deleted from a sample cell, scientists noticed that those cells would grow inappropriately huge and they wouldn't stop growing. But when TSC1 and TSC2 were present, like they normally should be, they would limit what insulin could do. And now this should make sense. EI's first genetic disorder causing tuberous sclerosis complex is that he's missing at least the TSC2 gene on chromosome 16. This is causing the cells in his brain and his kidneys and his skin to grow abnormally large, and they can't stop growing. Just next to the TSC2 gene, polycystic kidney disease gene mutations were also taking place, inappropriately growing blister-like structures all over his kidneys, culminating to the point where his kidneys were shutting down. But how would knowing this association with insulin help treat him? In 1965, on Rapa Nui, also known as Easter Island, west of South America, soil was collected. 10 years later, in 1975, a chemical was isolated from that sample, found to be produced by a bacteria, Streptomyces hygroscopicus. This chemical at first appeared to be an antibiotic, but very quickly, scientists found that it was an antifungal. But it also suppressed the immune system when given to humans, so any thought of it possibly being used as a medicine was put away. This chemical was named rapamycin, after the island's name. In 1991, scientists put fungus on a dish of rapamycin. Most of the fungus was destroyed, but some individuals survived. They were collected, they reproduced, and they were studied to figure out why they survived. 3 particular gene defects were identified in these survivors. If these genes were broken, then it means that they weren't normal. They enabled the fungus to survive against a chemical that's supposed to destroy them. And 2 of these genes identified were named target of rapamycin, TOR, creating proteins of the same name. In normal fungus, target of rapamycin gets targeted by rapamycin, and it ends with the fungus not surviving. But cell size also changes. So TOR isn't just something that gets hit by a chemical and enables the destruction of the fungus. It's doing something inside cells. If TOR is stopped, cells get smaller, and if it's amplified, cells become huge. And even more interesting, humans have TOR, and scientists discovered that it's associated with insulin. That's how it tells the cells to gather nutrients to grow. The human version of this is also found in mammals, so it was named the mammalian target of rapamycin, mTOR. Rapamycin attaches to mTOR and it stops it. This causes cells to shrink, and because TSC1 and TSC2 are also somehow linked to insulin, it means that there was one more discovery that would link all of this back to EI's problems. TSC1 and TSC2 genes encode for the proteins hamartin and tuberin. When put together, These communicate with mTOR and slow it down. They keep mTOR in check, meaning that cells don't grow inappropriately. But because EI was missing the TSC2 gene on chromosome 16, mTOR wouldn't slow down. It would create huge cells all the time in all different parts of the body. In the brain, it looked like new masses continuously growing, even after he had brain surgery to remove a tumor 13 years ago that was caused because of this genetic problem in the first place. It manifested as renal angiomyolipoma, allowing overgrowths of vascularized fat and muscle to proliferate all over his kidneys, causing them to shut down. And unfortunately, his mutations on chromosome 16 spanned from TSC2 to the gene right next to it for polycystic kidney disease, and it enabled additional cysts to grow all over his kidneys. If EI has overactive mTOR in his body because he's missing proteins that are supposed to slow it down, then the answer would be to give him rapamycin to slow down his mTOR. But the problem is, there's one more lesion on EI's kidney that hasn't been addressed. The malignant tumor that was the dominant mass on his removed kidney. It was a heterogeneous mass with necrotic tissue inside. Very clearly, this was a kidney cancer, not a cyst and not an angiomyolipoma. However, a second, smaller tumor was just below it, different in color, lacking the necrosis, while being a cancer itself. It's not normal for a 29-year-old to be growing this. This could mean that he has a third genetic defect, but what if it has to do with his tuberous sclerosis complex? TSC1 and TSC2 are known as tumor suppressor genes. This makes sense because their normal presence slows down a machine that makes cells larger. In 2014, scientists studied renal cell carcinomas in patients who had TSC. Because missing either the TSC1 or TSC2 genes will cause tuberous sclerosis complex, they found that if both genes are missing at the same time, that condition alone is sufficient to drive the growth of renal cell carcinoma in someone who has tuberous sclerosis complex. And this is the final explanation of what's happening to him. On his left kidney, there was almost no normal tissue left because growths were everywhere. Because EI had a multifocal carcinoma, meaning more than one malignant tumor, it means that the kidney still in his body would be at risk for eventually also growing renal cell carcinoma. And once the genetic changes inside the renal cell carcinoma start to evolve beyond missing TSC1 and TSC2, rapamycin likely isn't viable to work for his problem. All of this could be fine, except EI would have never been eligible for rapamycin in the first place because his case is happening in 1986. You see, tuberous sclerosis complex was first described in 1862 by Dr. von Recklinghausen and given more detail in 1880 by Dr. Bournville. Doctors had identified EI had TSC as early as the late 1950s when he was born, because it had been known for almost 100 years by then. But in the years up to 1986, there wasn't much that they can do other than remove tumors, remove water from his brain, and give him seizure medicine. It was only in 1987 when the first gene responsible for TSC was identified to be on chromosome 9. And even then, they weren't sure about this because the disease would happen in people who didn't inherit it in the same pattern as they did blood types. And only in 1991, when TOR was found in fungus, and 1992, when TSC2 was identified on chromosome 16, and in 1997, when Hamerton was identified as the protein encoded by TSC1. And it was in 2001 when TSC genes were found to interact with a pathway related to insulin in context of driving the question of how big a cell should get, finally linking all of it to mTOR inside cells, giving way for rapamycin to be a viable treatment modality for one who has tuberous sclerosis complex, just like EI. It was the scientific discoveries made during this time period immediately after 1986 and linked together to the idea of a genetic disease that fundamentally changed the lives of TSC patients. In the hospital, doctors had one more problem to look into. New masses had been found in EI's brain. The medical team had performed a study to look at the blood vessels in his brain. It showed that there was some swelling and fluid, but the masses growing weren't tumors. Shortly after the operation, EI complained of a massive headache, and pain medicines didn't work. He was given steroids to try to help limit some of the inflammation and swelling that could happen. There isn't a parallel timeline where EI would have magically gotten the treatment that he needed if they all ended in 1986. If he had been born 25 years later, it may not have turned out like this. Do you remember the seizures that he had in the first 2 years of his life? Well, those are called infantile spasms, and for each one that happens, it becomes less likely that the person will develop normally. But we have medicines for that now. Childhood seizures in tuberous sclerosis complex are also linked to developmental delay. Anti-seizure medicines are still given, but sometimes the patient won't respond to one, and a second one is added on. And if that doesn't work, a third, and then a fourth. And then it becomes less likely that the seizures can be treated with medicines the more medicines that are added. But we have multiple treatment modalities available now. mTOR inhibitor medicines based on rapamycin can shrink tubers that could be growing in the brain. Another medicine, not strictly for seizures alone, can be added on and has been shown to be effective and has been studied and approved for use. And because mTOR pathway is linked to insulin, a ketogenic diet aimed at limiting insulin level peaks in blood has also been shown to be helpful in reducing seizure frequency in some TSC patients. It's hard to imagine that knowing where ABO blood typing is in the genome allowed us to find a gene that makes a protein that checks a mechanism that controls cell size based on a signal sent by insulin, and that soil from an island west of South America would contain a bacteria that produces a chemical that stops that cell size mechanism that in humans would limit tumor growth and be able to treat some of the underlying problems of someone who has the genetic mutations of TSC1 and or TSC2. Understanding mTOR has also enabled understanding many other diseases. For example, diabetes is linked right to insulin and glucose, and one of the most common medicines for it, metformin, is upstream of the mTOR pathway. The heart can sometimes hypertrophy, that is, grow inappropriately in size, which would prevent it from properly ejecting adequate blood for each pump. And because we're talking about cell size as one aspect of it here, it has a link to mTOR. Because rapamycin was found to suppress the immune system, it was studied in autoimmune diseases, and derivatives of it were made for organ transplant, because the immune system will recognize a new organ as a foreign entity and then attack it, and the overwhelming response can destroy one's body. So, medicines to limit the immune system would prevent that damage from happening. Multiple pathways converge onto mTOR that all start from different signals, all of which have been and are still currently being studied. One final question that can be answered. Why did EI take the whole bottles of seizure medicine and vitamin D? It's hard to know the exact motivation, but it highlights that despite scientific advancements, care of patients on a personal level is paramount. 90% of TSC patients will be impacted by neuropsychiatric disorders, two of which can be impulsive behavior and forgetfulness, the latter possibly being associated with some level of intellectual disability that was associated with his somewhat untreated childhood seizures due to TSC. It deteriorated his mental health and it brought him to the emergency room for the last time. 15 hours after his brain blood vessel study, EI started having a seizure. No one in the hospital was near him when it happened, and when the nurse went in to check on him, no vital signs were found. At autopsy, they found his brain had swelled so much that it folded over itself in his skull, along with the masses that come without the access to the right medicines for this genetic disorder. This video is based on two cases combined together, done this way to teach about tuberous sclerosis complex and all the discoveries and developments that led to our better understanding of it. The renal angiomyolipomas can result in fatal hemorrhage, but the presentation of it with polycystic kidney disease and renal cell carcinoma really highlight the genetic basis of this disease, and the resulting brain masses can impact a patient's cognitive development. EI is based on a real TSC patient from 1986 with this same outcome. But all of the discoveries and connection of ideas since then that are still happening today have helped positively impact patients with tuberous sclerosis complex. Thanks so much for watching. Take care of yourself and be well. Hi, Dr. Bernard here. Everything has risks. In the cases presented here, the problem would have been solved by not putting things in their body that they didn't need to put. In this particular population,
imagine the air, thick and heavy with the scent of copal incense and damp earth, clinging to your skin like a second soul. The only light is the mad dance of torchlight, casting long, distorted shadows that writhe against the stone walls of a pyramid. A man-made mountain, reaching for the stars. The jungle isn't silent. It's alive with a symphony of the unseen. The rasp of a jaguar, the chatter of 1,000 insects, the low, rhythmic chanting of priests that seems to vibrate not in your ears, but in the very marrow of your bones. This is the world of the Maya, a civilization we think we know. We see their impossibly precise calendars, their staggering architectural genius, their sophisticated understanding of mathematics and the cosmos. And we build a picture of a people of pure intellect, of serene stargazers and wise philosophers. We see the ruins at Chichen Itza and Tikal as silent monuments to a lost golden age. But that picture, the one you see in documentaries and textbooks, is dangerously incomplete. It's a comfortable lie we tell ourselves, because carved into those same stones, hidden in the intricate folds of their mysterious glyphs, and whispered in the fragmented stories of their descendants, is another truth. A truth that is visceral, carnal, and to our modern sensibilities utterly terrifying. Before we pull back that veil, before we step into the heart of this forgotten world, I want you to do something for me. If you're the kind of person who believes that history isn't just about kings and dates, but about the raw, messy, and passionate pulse of human life, then hit that like button. Subscribe, because we're not just reciting facts here. We're embarking on a journey together into the shadows of the past. And comment below, let me know where in the world you're joining this expedition from. It's a constant source of wonder to me that we can connect from every corner of the globe, united by a shared curiosity for the stories that made us who we are. Now take a deep breath, because the story we're about to uncover is not one of serene astronomers. It's a story of blood, sacrifice, and a view of sexuality so alien, so deeply intertwined with the sacred and the savage, that it will fundamentally change how you see this legendary civilization. The Maya believed the universe was born from a divine sexual act. The cosmos itself was a product of cosmic intercourse. Their creation story, the Popol Vuh, speaks of gods who had to spill their own blood, their own essence, to give life to the world. And for the Maya, that divine act wasn't a one-time event. It was a cycle that had to be perpetually renewed, refueled, and reenacted by humanity. Creation wasn't a spectator sport, it was a participatory mandate. And the fuel for that cosmic engine, it was the most potent, life-giving substances they knew: blood and semen. To them, these weren't just biological fluids, they were the physical manifestation of life force. Of Ka, the sacred essence that animated all things. Semen was the seed of mankind, and blood was the seed of the gods. To combine them, to offer them, was to participate directly in the ongoing creation of the universe. This wasn't about pleasure in the way we understand it. It wasn't about love or romance. It was a duty, a terrifying, painful, and ecstatic duty. The line we draw between the bedroom and the temple, between personal desire and public worship, simply did not exist for them. The body was not a private vessel for individual experience. It was an altar. And the most sacred rituals were performed upon this altar of flesh and blood. Imagine a young nobleman, perhaps no older than 16, chosen for the highest honour. He has spent weeks in ritual purification, fasting, praying, ingesting hallucinogenic substances to open his mind to the spirit world. He's not being prepared for a wedding. He's being prepared for a sacrifice of a different kind. On the night of the ceremony, he is brought before the community, to the top of that pyramid. The chanting reaches a fever pitch. The air is electric with anticipation. He is not afraid. He is exalted, because he is about to feed the gods. The high priest, adorned in jaguar skins and the brilliant green feathers of the Quetzal bird, approaches with an instrument that looks like a nightmare. It's a stingray spine, a viciously sharp serrated barb, holy in its power to draw forth the sacred essence. And in a moment of supreme religious ecstasy, witnessed by the entire community, this young man, this vessel of the gods, will take that spine and perform an act of auto-sacrifice that is almost impossible for us to comprehend. He will pierce his own penis. Not once, but multiple times, threading a rope through the perforations. A rope that has been studded with thorns to maximize the flow of blood. The pain is unimaginable, transcendent. But it is not a punishment. It is a portal. His blood, the most sacred offering, drips onto pieces of bark paper, which are then set ablaze. The smoke from this offering, carrying his life force, his very soul, rises to the heavens to nourish the gods, to ensure the sun will rise tomorrow, that the rains will come, that the corn, the very substance of their life, will grow. He is a conduit between the mortal and the divine, and his agony is the price of cosmic balance. This wasn't a rare or extreme event performed by a fringe cult. This was a cornerstone of Maya cosmology, practiced by kings, by nobles, by the elite who are considered closest to the gods. We know this not from speculation, but from their own art. Stellae, lintelals, and painted ceramics from cities like Yaxchilan depict their rulers, their kings, engaged in this very act. King Shield Jaguar the Cud is shown pulling a thorny rope through his tongue, while his wife, Lady Zook, performs the
Head empty, no thoughts. Yeah, there's nothing in my brain. You got no shot. Unless you come wish to say, switch or turn off. If you can't pick up my pace, I'll be running around in circles trying to dodge a second date. Gamer boy, no game. Are you sure you're straight? Cause the way you play got me loose and face still. You're liking my pictures, flame emojis and kisses. You never shoot your shot, you just shoot your kids in a sock. Head empty, no.
Hey there, drowsy historian